Hey, what's up guys? I'm Aditya from Fossbytes.com and this is the Galaxy S10 Plus and this is the iPhone XS. Okay, wait. XS, S10, S10, XS. Yeah, the names might sound similar but the cameras on these smartphones are not so same. Okay now, so let's find out if one is better than the other. Now before everything else, let's talk about the much hyped the ultra wide lens on the Galaxy S10 Plus. It's a big plus point over the iPhone XS. So here is the image from the telephoto lens on the S10 Plus. Then this one is from the wide lens and wait for it. This is the ultra wide. So comparing this to the iPhone XS, seriously it covers way more area and so it's quite helpful when you have to take those beautiful landscape shots on your road trip or maybe somewhere else. And here is another ultra wide shot. Now here I want to remind you that our review of the Galaxy S10 Plus is already out, so do check it out in your free time using the link above. Now it's time for the slow. So guys, that was the amazing slow motion you just saw on both the devices, and the 960 fps on the Galaxy S10 Plus does give it an edge over the iPhone XS. However, I think that the colors on the iPhone XS are still better even in the slow motion. Anyway, now I am out in the gardens and I am testing out the video performance on both these devices. So let's start with 4K 30 frames per second on both the devices. And here also you can see that the colors on the iPhone and the Galaxy S10 Plus are good individually, but when I compare them side by side, I'll prefer the iPhone XS here in terms of colors. Now let's test out the video stabilization at 4K 30 frames per second. So first I'll walk and then I'll run for a while to increase the difficulty level. So on 4K 30 it seems that the S10 Plus has got better stabilization, but again talk about the dynamic range, the iPhone XS here I guess takes the lead because you have more blacker shadow of the trees on this pathway, as you can see. Now I'm running at 1080 on both the devices and let's do the drill and test out the stabilization. So on 1080p this time I think that both the devices are close to each other in terms of video stabilization, and maybe the iPhone is doing slightly better. Now you might be knowing that the Galaxy S10 Plus has a feature called the SuperSteady mode, which improves the video stabilization on the phone. So I'm testing it out, but an important thing that I want to tell you here is that it only works on the 1080p resolution on the S10 Plus. So guys, that was the SuperSteady mode on the Galaxy S10 Plus, and you just saw how big of a difference it makes in terms of software stabilization. Now I'm running 1080 on both the devices on the front camera. So let's test out the stabilization first. So guys, on the front camera the S10 Plus is a clear winner because on the iPhone the background was all jittery, while that was not the case on the S10 Plus. Now if I talk about the colors, I think that the S10 Plus is more closer to reality, the grass, but the iPhone is adding a little bit more contrast while there is extra brightness on the S10 Plus. So again, it might depend on your personal choice which one will you choose.
And lastly, on the S10 Plus, you have got the 4K recording on the front camera as well. So let's check it out. Although here the iPhone is running at 1080, so there is no comparison as such, but I think that it's doing fine.
So guys, that's the video part, and here I think that I should give a big thumbs up to the Galaxy S10 Plus because you have got better stabilization and you have 4K recording on both front and rear cameras. But on the other hand, the iPhone XS here seems to have better dynamic range, which we'll explore more in the photo section. So moving on, here are some close-up shots that I took using the telephoto or the zoom lens on both the phones. So I like the colors of the flowers on the iPhone XS image. It's giving better shadows, and that's why the image is not looking flat, which I feel is the case with the S10 Plus. On the other hand, the S10 Plus is making the flower look much brighter, which I guess some people might prefer. However, if you notice, the brightness thing gets flipped when there is no direct sunlight over the flower, like here in this image. Now take this photo. Here also I prefer the colors of the XS, but the Galaxy S10 Plus has got better depth of field. As you can see that the blurriness below the flower looks more gradual than just being there all over the place. Although it's also the case that the flower looks much more separated from the background in the XS image. And by the way, this is another reason why I like the XS image more. But then this is just a personal choice, so it might differ from person to person. So overall, for the close-up shots, I am giving a plus point to the iPhone XS, which has better contrast and it brings more color tones to its images. Now let's check out some daytime shots that I took using the rear camera wide-angle lens on both the phones. Here again, the XS is adding better contrast with more punchy colors than the S10 Plus. Also, it's balancing the light better than Samsung, like this X is much more visible in the iPhone's image. In the next photo, there is no direct sunlight and you have got lots of small stones to judge the detail and sharpness of the image. Personally, I like the colors on both images, but it's simply visible that the iPhone XS has way more detail than the S10 Plus. Also, the better dynamic range and the great sharpness in the photo again makes me prefer the XS over the S10 Plus. Talking more about the dynamic range, I took photos in different lighting conditions and it clearly seems that it's very hard for the S10 to beat Apple's Smart HDR. Now here I want to show you the Galaxy S10's ultra wide mode for one more time. So here it is. Anyway, there are times when the S10 Plus is just disappointing, but sometimes I do prefer the S10 Plus because it becomes very hard for me to digest the color saturation on the iPhone XS. Also, sometimes the warmer tone in the iPhone XS images makes me dislike them even more. Still, it depends on your personal choice. For example, again in this image, I like the flowers on the S10 Plus photo, but my friends went with the iPhone XS. Anyway, here you have got better contrast in the XS image. But if I zoom into the building in the background, you can see that how S10 Plus is doing better in terms of detail. Also, talking about the zoom, the telephoto lens on the S10 Plus performs a lot better than the iPhone. Like you can see that in this airplane image taken at 10x zoom on both the phones. So yes, it's not the case that Samsung is losing every time, but overall I think that iPhone XS is beating the Samsung flagship in daytime shots. Now let's talk about the tricky part, the ultra low light photos. And here you can clearly see that the Galaxy S10 Plus is the undefeated winner because my friend is way more visible here while on the iPhone it's next to dark. Here is another example of ultra low light. In the next two photos I can say that both are looking equally good and it's hard to pick a winner. The brightness levels are almost the same, but here the S10 Plus has got more detail in the darker parts like on the rail track. But the sharpness is where the iPhone takes the lead. Like you can see the difference here if I zoom into this red signboard. Also, the iPhone has less noise than the S10 Plus. In fact, it seems that when you have got more light into the scene, it changes the whole story. Like here, the iPhone XS is adding more detail to the scene, and at the same time the S10 Plus is oversaturating the brighter parts. So knowing that I am scared of the dark, I'll personally go with the iPhone XS here for low light images. Now, before you ask, the bright night feature is there on the Galaxy S10 Plus and it kicks in automatically when the phone thinks that you need it. But for me, it did not activate like more than half of the time, not even in normal low light conditions, so I'm not taking this as a factor here. But yes, when it comes to ultra low light, the Galaxy S10 Plus just crushes the iPhone XS. And also it's one of the few moments where the bright night feature actually works. And also the Galaxy S10 Plus is giving you brighter photos on the front camera as well. Like here is one selfie that I took, and the difference here is considerable. With that said, let's check out some daytime selfies that I took using the front camera. So here I'm choosing the S10 Plus because the iPhone XS is sort of changing my whole skin tone. However, when the sunlight is falling on my face, the S10 Plus is like flashing light on my nose, blowing out the details, whereas almost all of the iPhone XS photos are balanced. And just like the Pixel 3, you have got the wide selfie option on the S10 Plus, which can be really helpful when you've got a big group of friends and you don't have the Qanoon ke haath, as they say it in India. Anyway, that's a plus point. So for the front camera, I'm going with the S10 Plus. Now let's move on to the portrait mode. Here, one thing you should note is that the S10 Plus uses the wide angle lens for the portrait photos, while the XS uses the telephoto. So now edge detection is good on both the phones, but sometimes the portrait images on the S10 Plus don't look that compelling, or maybe not a portrait image at all. And that's why you might have to move a little bit closer to take better shots, because one problem that I have with these wide portrait photos is that the subject does not look separated from the background in the bottom half of the photos. Anyway, it depends from person to person whether you want wide shots or you want close shots. In the portrait mode on the front side, the edge detection is good on both, but the XS is struggling around my cheek and the S10 Plus around my shoulder. And again, the Samsung is trying to shower all the light on my face, but still I find it better than the iPhone XS in this case. In the next image also, the S10 Plus is making it brighter, but again the iPhone XS is trying to keep the balance. So I think that it's a tie in the front camera portrait mode. Now wrapping this up, both the smartphones have turned out to be just amazing. So just like me, if you click more photos than you record videos, then I'd ask you to go with the iPhone XS. Because as you just saw, it's consistently taking better photos in different lighting conditions. Also, I like the colors overall, and the fact that it balances the light better than the Galaxy S10 Plus. But portrait mode is one thing where I can't decide, so I'll leave it up to you. On the other hand, the photos of the Galaxy S10 Plus are also really good, especially on the front camera. And I think that it has a more usable smartphone camera if you consider the overall performance. Because first you have got better video stabilization, and then there is 4K recording on both front and rear cameras. Also, I can't ignore the ultra wide lens, which is giving us more real estate. The S10 Plus has better images in dark areas, and also you have got the 960 fps super slow motion. And lastly, the camera app on the Galaxy S10 Plus has more options, like you have the Instagram mode, the food mode, and many other fancy features, which I guess could be a big plus point for many users. Anyway, that's my opinion, and the final decision depends on your personal choice. So tell me in the comments down below, what do you prefer, the iPhone XS or the Galaxy S10? And as always, if you like this video, then you can give me a big thumbs up. If you loved it, then subscribe, hit the bell icon, share it with your friends and family, and I'll talk to you in the next one.